Today, we're going to dive into a truly catastrophic failure. But this wasn't caused by a bomb or a natural disaster. It was set in motion by a single 2-minute phone call, a call that would go on to change an entire industry forever. You know, this quote from someone who was right there in the middle of it really says it all. One moment you have routine, stability, and the next, just total chaos. So the real question is, how on earth does something like this actually happen? 120 seconds. That's it. That's all it took. Just 2 minutes. That was the entire window of time from when that phone was picked up to the moment an irreversible, catastrophic action was taken. Let's break down how a tiny 2-minute window was all it took to change absolutely everything. Okay. So to really get the gravity of what happened, we're going to unravel this whole thing. We're going to trace that chain of events, step by step, that led from one simple phone call to a full-blown crisis. But here's the thing. We're actually going to start this story at the end. We're going to look at the aftermath first. Because really, it's only by understanding the sheer scale of the failure that you can really appreciate how fragile, how delicate those moments leading up to it actually were. All right, now let's rewind. Let's go back and see how this all began. I want you to just picture a completely ordinary day. Think of a high-stakes control room, maybe for a power grid or something similar. It's the kind of day that's so normal you wouldn't even remember it. Nothing remarkable happens. And that was the backdrop for this story. I mean, everything was by the book. All the standard checks were done. All the boxes ticked. Diagnostics were green across the board. Every single person was exactly where they were supposed to be, doing exactly what they were trained to do. There was absolutely zero indication of a crisis, not a single warning sign. Just look at this timeline. It's almost painfully mundane, right? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a normal shift change. 15 minutes later, the system logs are totally clean. Then at 2:28, just 2 minutes before the call, there's even a recording of some casual chatter. It's the very definition of routine. And then at 14:30, the phone rings. And here we are. This is the pivot point. This is the 2-minute window where the entire world just tilted on its axis. Everything that follows happens because of what is about to happen in the next few seconds. Now, the call itself wasn't strange. It was a standard communication protocol. Someone needed to relay a piece of information from a monitoring station to the main control room. It was a message that had probably been sent hundreds, if not thousands of times before without a single problem. And this was the single point of failure. It wasn't a broken machine. It wasn't a system crash. It was a human moment, a simple, devastating misunderstanding. A message that was intended as a warning that a key system was showing high variance was heard as an instruction to bring that system to a higher state for a test. You see, the words that were said were not the words that were heard. So there's actually a technical term for this kind of failure, a semantic misunderstanding. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's when we use the exact same words, but we attach completely different meanings to them. This isn't about someone being bad at their job or having malicious intent. It's about that subtle but incredibly dangerous gap in our shared understanding. It's how a simple warning can sound exactly like an instruction. So believing they were following the correct procedure, based on the information they thought they just received, the person on the other end of that line took action. They manually overrode the automated safety protocols. And just like that, an action was taken that could not be undone. And the consequences, well, they weren't delayed. They didn't unfold slowly over hours or days. They were immediate. And they were absolutely catastrophic. This chart really says it all. A drop from 100% operational capacity all the way down to just 5%. In the real world, that represents a near-total system collapse. Essential functions just stopped, safety nets vanished, and the entire operation was brought to its knees in an instant. See, that initial action just triggered a cascade. The systems that were designed to contain this kind of mistake, they failed. Why? Because they weren't designed to handle this specific kind of human error. They'd been manually overridden. The impact spread like a shockwave through the entire system, and it was only then that everyone started to grasp the sheer magnitude of what had just happened. You know, disasters, as terrible as they are, often end up being our most powerful teachers. The fallout from this event wasn't just about cleaning up the wreckage. It was about rewriting the rulebook to make sure this could never, ever happen again. And this slide just perfectly illustrates those changes. Before, a simple yep or roger that was considered good enough. Now, a mandatory readback protocol is in place, where the receiver has to repeat the critical information back word for word. Communication went from a single, fallible channel to redundant, cross-verified systems. And maybe most importantly, the old habit of just assuming everyone was on the same page was thrown out. It was replaced by a requirement for explicit clarification. No more ambiguity, period. So really, the crucial point here is this. The true legacy wasn't just about preventing one specific operational failure. It was about fundamentally changing how we communicate when the stakes are high. It was about finally acknowledging the risk that's just inherent in human communication itself, and then building systems strong enough to protect us from our own, very human mistakes. And that kind of leaves us with a really critical question to think about, not just in these high-stakes jobs, but in our own lives too. How thin, really, is that line between a perfectly normal day and a defining disaster? As we've seen today, sometimes that line is only 120 seconds long. And sometimes it all starts with a simple ring of a phone.